Good morning and welcome to News Center Maine's Political Brew. Glad you could be with us. We're joined today by Ray Richardson of WLOB Radio and Ken Altshuler, who was a longtime co-host of the WGAN Morning News. Gentlemen, good to see you.
Good to be here.
Good to see both of you.
A few days ago, President Biden delivered his first State of the Union address, looking to hit the reset button. Ray, did it work, or will there be no boost for Joe Biden's sagging approval ratings?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to see any approval ratings jump out of all this. You know, the beginning of the speech and when he talked about Ukraine, I thought he did a pretty good job on the issue. What we now need to see is some action, like cutting off Russian oil and turning on the American oil spigot again. But I think that was not bad. The rest of the speech was just a laundry list of liberal ideas that the Congress has already rejected and most of the American people have rejected. So I'm not certain why he did that. It seemed like a bad strategy. He had an opportunity here that he missed.
Ken, what did you think?
Well, I don't think State of the Union speeches are anything other than a dog and pony show. I don't think people get anything out of it except see the president and make judgments about him. So frankly, no, it's not going to have anything to do with his approval ratings. American public are cranky. We're a cranky population right now, and that's reflected in approval ratings. And it doesn't matter what he does; it's not going to change anything.
Now,
I think you're right. Yeah, I just want to say,
Ray.
I think he's right. I think the American people are very cranky right now. That's a good word.
Well, members of Congress were cranky that night too. A lot of heckling going on, which is unfortunate, I think. But
you know what it is? It's disgraceful. This is supposed to be a statesman-like event. It's a constitutional thing. The Constitution says the president will inform the Congress from time to time about the State of the Union. It doesn't require a speech, but you know, I think there were three moments in the last decade. The fellow down in South Carolina hollered at Obama, "You lie." I think Barack Obama scolded the Supreme Court, which was awful. And then what happened the other night? I mean, where's the decorum? These are supposed to be leaders, but they're just clearly not.
Getting back to something you mentioned, Ray, Senators Collins and King are among those backing the bipartisan bill to ban Russian energy imports, which is very likely going to have an impact on our gas and oil prices. So to make up for that, you think President Biden should order a boost in U.S. oil production?
Well, of course, if you go back and look at American oil production, in November of 2019, we were producing 12,966,000 barrels of oil per day. Right now, American production is about 11,600,000 barrels. So we're down about 1.36 million barrels a day. We could certainly cover that if we were producing that oil again. And look, from a moral standpoint, America is supposed to be about goodness. Among many things, freedom, goodness. We are helping fund Putin's aggression in Ukraine, and it's just intolerable. I think the president has to ban this oil, and I think we ought to turn the American spigot back on. And I know he's got a left flank he's got to worry about, and I do think going back to the State of the Union, it was a missed opportunity. He could have said to the country, we're going to start producing fossil fuels again at the level we were. But to those that are worried about alternative energy, we're also going to go in and robustly do that. We're not ready to make that switch anyhow. We just can't shut this down. It's the blood of the American economy.
What do you think, Ken?
Ray, you're not going to be able to appease the left on the fossil fuel issue. And the problem is you've got to do a balancing act. So, yeah, increase oil production at what cost in both political and in terms of the environment. I think there's a balance. Some of my people on the far left don't agree. And this is a good opportunity for Republicans to say, yes, let's cut off the oil from Russia, knowing that that will cause him to reduce the restrictions and expand the fossil fuel development here in the United States. That being said, I think there's a moral and ethical signal to send here. I don't think you can criticize Russia, as we need to do, and buy oil from them. And I think it's not going to change it's going to increase the price of gas at the pump, but it's already high. So what's another 50 cents because we're not buying Russian oil? I think you have to say, we're cutting off the spigot. We don't care what it costs. We have to stand by Ukraine. And I think he has to do it from a moral and practical point of view, no matter what the cost is.
But you have to sell it as a shared sacrifice.
Yes. Right.
Well, I think you guys both know how the price works, though. This is all based on futures contracts. And I think if the president were to say, we're going to turn the spigot back on in America, the speculators, you would see the price of oil drop immediately. And that would be a big thing for the American people. A noted economist whose name escapes me at the moment, but studies the oil industry, says if we continue on our current path by July, when we have peak consumption, we could be close to $7 across the country for a gallon of gas. That's intolerable. But more importantly, to the moral issue, we cannot be funding Putin's rage.
Now, Senator Angus King says Vladimir Putin is now the most dangerous person in history, leading a war that will end in an unwinnable occupation, raising the threat of cyber warfare, and unspoken in what he said is this guy has nukes. Is that hyperbole, Ken, or is King correct?
I remember Adolf Hitler. I don't like Putin, and I think Putin is a madman, and I think he's mentally and emotionally unstable. He's not evil like Adolf Hitler was. His invasion of Ukraine is not ethnically based. He believes that Ukraine belongs to Russia. He believes they're Russians, and he wants to restore the Soviet Union to its former greatness, which is not going to happen. Is he evil? Absolutely. There's no logic or sense to what he did. At the end of the day, this is going to end badly for him. And even though I don't agree with Lindsey Graham that he should be assassinated, I think that deposing him is certainly on the table in Russia. But no, I don't think he's the most evil man in the history of the history of the world. I could name probably 10 that are worse than him. But yes, we have to stand up to him and recognize him for what he is, a madman, and a man who is a nationalist and a populist without rhyme or reason.
Ray?
Well, I agree with Ken. I disagree with Senator King. He's not the most evil man in history. He may be among the most evil. As we know, he puts down dissidents in his country. He poisons people. They just disappear when he doesn't like them. But, you know, we have a relevant example in the last 100 years of actual evil on the earth, and that was Adolf Hitler, as Ken rightly noted. So I don't think all this hyperbole is necessary. What Russia has done is they've invaded a sovereign nation, and that should be frightening for the world. And look, Putin is a bloodthirsty predator, and now he's gotten the taste of blood. Will this quench his thirst? I don't think so. I think he either goes to the Baltic states or, God forbid, Poland. This is a very serious situation that the American government has got to tread lightly with. I don't agree with boots on the ground, but at some point, Putin has to be stymied one way or the other.
And to be clear, Senator King was not talking about his evil. He was talking about the danger that Vladimir Putin poses. And I think part of that is because he controls nuclear weapons. And so
that's exactly right. This man, it's not like the United States where there are some checks and balances to the man who controls the nuclear weapons. There are no controls in Russia. He pushes that button and nobody's going to stop him. That is frightening. Absolutely.
Shifting our gaze to Augusta, revenue forecasters say Maine is going to take in an additional $412 million above earlier projections. That's on top of $820 million in surplus, which is already being accounted for in the supplemental budget. So Governor Mills says she plans to boost the refund checks to go out by the year's end from $500 to $750. Ray, I know you're not fond of the check idea, but do you think that the Republicans in Augusta are going to go along with it?
Well, let's face it, whether they do or whether they don't, they have no say because they're in the extreme minority. As you know, I believe we should be cutting the income tax, which will have a long-term sustainable value to the people of Maine, help build the economy, and attract outside investments. Our tax rate per capita is the fourth highest in the country. I think that this is just a political stunt, bumping the checks to $750. If she was going to do that, why not just give it all back to the people who earned it? Let's remember, a budget surplus is actually overtaxation, but I guess she has other goodies to hand out. I think it's a bad idea. If I were the Republicans, though, frankly, I would go along with it and give it a 2/3 majority so that it takes effect immediately and those checks come out in June or July instead of September or October, as Governor Mills would probably most like.
Ken?
You know, this is an area where Ray and I have repeatedly agreed. I am not a big fan of just issuing checks and assuming that's going to stimulate the economy as the logic was in COVID or because we have a surplus. I agree with Ray. Our tax rate's too high. Our sales tax is too high. This is a short-term political gain. And by the way, Republicans had called for this. And she's mentioned that. She goes, as the Republicans want to do. So I think it's a political ploy. I think the Republicans will go along with it. It'll make people like Janet Mills, but I don't think it's sound financial strategy. I'm with Ray on this. Let's lower the tax rate.
Minor correction. The Republicans did not want these checks. They wanted to lower the tax rates. It was income tax first. If they couldn't get that, sales tax second, and then ultimately the rebate checks, if that was all they could do. but it looks like it's going to be the rebate checks, which is the third option and the worst one.
Some news out of Washington this week. January 6th committee is arguing that Donald Trump was involved in a criminal conspiracy to overturn the 2020 election, including preventing Congress from certifying electoral votes. Ken, how big a deal is this?
Well, not a surprise to me, and I know Ray and I disagree about this. I think that Donald Trump incited the riot, and in fact, yes, he materially participated in a strategy, Rudy Giuliani being his head man on this, to defraud the American public into believing that the election was fraudulent, which it was not. And the big lie continues, and Republicans continue to not call him on this. Maybe this will get some Republicans some strength to say, you know what? Maybe he was wrong to do this. But so far, Republicans, particularly in leadership, have not been willing to do it. Now, will anything come of it? Are they going to indict the president of the United States? I still have my doubts about that. Donald Trump has been very Teflon oriented. Things have slid off his back, but good for the committee. I don't think it's going to change anything, but the more that gets piled on, perhaps more people will buy the understanding that Donald Trump has lied to them.
What do you think, Ray?
Well, so people say to me all the time, boy, you and Ken agree a lot. This is one area where we don't agree. I do believe an investigation needed to happen. I think the wrong people are doing. These are all Trump haters, including the two Republicans that are involved in it. I never went for the big lie or whatever they want to call it, stop the steal. My standard has always been evidence that would stand up in court. Thus far, none has been presented. So on November the 5th, I accepted the election and moved on. The DOJ and the FBI has come out to say they have no evidence that Donald Trump helped orchestrate, organize, or strategize the January 6th riot at the Capitol. The DOJ has said they have no interest in indicting the president. I think that this committee is a witch hunt, and they had a conclusion, and they were just trying to find some documents to back it up. Look, President Trump, I don't know why he didn't do a video message earlier in the day and say, stop this nonsense. But there's no evidence that he did this. Yes, he believes the election was stolen. I don't happen to agree with him because I've seen no evidence that will stand up in court.
This coming week, Senator Collins is expected to meet with Supreme Court nominee Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. This is important for the Biden administration, Ray, as they look to get some Republicans on board for a confirmation vote.
Well, the Constitution says to the Senate, the president shall nominate and the Senate will provide advice and consent. Senator Collins has a long history, with the exception of Amy Coney Barrett, and that was a unique circumstance because she felt Merrick Garland was not given the opportunity to have an up or down vote. So she voted no on Amy Coney Barrett, not because of qualifications or anything else. I think she's right to look at this nominee, ask some tough questions. But at the end of the day, Joe Biden won the election, and he has the right to nominate someone to the Supreme Court, and the Senate should do its constitutional duty. Look, I'm thrilled Merrick Garland is not on the court. But I said at the time, and I'll say it again, he deserved an up or down vote in 2016, and the Senate needs to do its job. Republicans, unless there is a compelling reason, you remember Abe Fortas from the early Nixon years. He had some corruption issues. They voted him down. In fact, he may have resigned or withdrew. But unless there's something like that, judicial philosophy, according to the Federalist and according to the Constitution, is not a reason to say no. I hope Republicans, unless there's a reason, will vote for her.
But in terms of politics, Ken, clearly Joe Biden wants Susan Collins' vote as well as others. In fact, he called her before he made the announcement a couple of weeks ago.
Yes, and this is the one thing I will give Susan Collins credit for. She has been fairly consistent in supporting nominations of the president, the sitting president, absent some compelling reason not to. Now, of course, Justice Jackson has been approved by the Senate, I think, twice already. Very recently, he's going to get Susan Collins' vote. He's going to get Lisa Murkowski's vote. He should get Joe Manchin's vote, although Joe Manchin is a Democrat. He should get 2 or 3 Republican votes. If the Republicans were smart, they would simply vote to confirm and be able to say, we're being nonpartisan here. They're not going to do that, just as the Democrats probably wouldn't do that. And so therefore, we're going to have this partisan vote. But she'll be confirmed, as she should be. And I applaud Susan Collins because this is one area that she's been very consistent.
And there's really no need for drama here because this is not going to change the balance of power on that court.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let's not forget, it wasn't that long ago. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was confirmed like 97-3 or something like that. Yeah. There was a time where people did their jobs and just didn't do partisan stuff. Look, if there's a compelling reason not to vote for, fine. But that should have already come out in their prior vettings.
Yeah. And Breyer got more than 90 votes as well. And Pat, You're exactly right. A liberal for a liberal. This is not. It's not like when Scalia died, and that was going to be a change of political view. That was serious. This is really not changing the balance of the court at all.
The Senate this past week passed a resolution to block the vaccine mandate for healthcare workers, that federal mandate. Senator Angus King voted no, but Senator Susan Collins said yes. She argues that mandate exacerbates staffing shortages, particularly for rural healthcare providers, which is something we know about here in Maine. Ray, is this a little late in the game? Haven't the effects of Maine's own mandate already been felt in terms of staffing?
Yeah, I think it's a little late in the game. As you know, I've talked about this extensively. Governor Mills did not create the healthcare worker shortage in this state. We were already having it due to an aging population, but she poured gas on that fire with her mandate, her vaccination mandate, and they lost anywhere from 500 to 1,500 workers. And then we turn around on December 27th and say, hey, look, we're going to let some COVID positive healthcare workers treat patients. This has been so poorly handled at all levels. Yeah, this is basically like closing the barn doors after the horses have already gotten out.
Ken, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Ray and you. It's a little late in the game. It's a look good, feel good political act. It's too late. I absolutely believe that the mandate was appropriate. I don't want to go into a hospital where there's hospital personnel that are not vaccinated. That's my own personal view. And yes, Ray, it has been inconsistent. It's followed the CDC science, and that's been inconsistent. And that's a whole different problem. The messaging has been terrible. But too late. Doesn't matter. We're almost at the end of the tunnel now. Let's just get past this.
All right, let's finish up this week with our winners and losers in politics. And Ken, we'll start with you.
I think the winners are clearly the Ukrainian people. I mean, I think this is a people that have stood their ground in the face of formidable attacks by a madman in Russia. Will they succeed? Will they defeat the Russian army? No, they will not. But they're going to postpone it. They're going to show their courage and their bravery. And I applaud them, and I applaud everybody who in the world who has supported them. The loser of the week, Vladimir Putin. This was a bad calculation on his part. It is without logic. It's based on nationalism. It's based on a history of him being an evil KGB operator. I think that this is going to come back to backfire on him. I think it's going to topple him from government eventually. And at the end of the day, it will turn out good for the Ukrainian people and bad for Vladimir Putin.
And Ray, what do you got?
I agree with Ken on the winners. I have had live reporting from Kyiv every day. One of my friends, a member of the government, and they have been very heroic at an awful time. So I agree with Ken. I don't normally do a loser, but I just think President Biden is the loser because the State of the Union is quite likely the largest bully pulpit in the world. And I think he missed enormous opportunities with his speech. So I think President Biden was the loser for that reason.
Ray Richardson, Ken Altshuler, thank you for being with us. As always, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time on Political Brew. News Center Maine is back after this.